Welcome to lesson 4. So for your warm-up today, you've actually got 2 activities to do. So you'll pause the video to do activity 1 and 2. Activity 1 is add or subtract the fractions. Activity 2 tells you to rewrite the data set in order, smallest to biggest, and then find the maximum, minimum, the range, and the median. You do not have to find the mean. Okay, that's going to take a lot of extra time that you don't have to do this time. So pause the video, work on those. When you're done, unpause it, and come back and see how you did. So activity 1. 2/3 plus 1/6 is the same thing as, 2/3 times 2 over 2 is 4 over 6. So I actually have 4 over 6 plus 1 over 6, which is going to equal 5 over 6 for an answer. You need to show this work. You cannot go from here to here. That is not going to work. All right. Number 2. 4/5 minus 1/3. I need to find a common denominator, which is going to be 15. So I multiply 4/5 by 3 over 3 to get 12 over 15. 1/3 I multiply by 5 over 5 to get 5 over 15. So I actually have 12 over 15 minus 5 over 15, which is 7 over 15. All right, if you wrote 7 over 15 in this box without showing me any work, I would say I have no idea how you were able to get that from these numbers, since 7 and 15 were nowhere in there, and I wouldn't give you the credit. You need to show your work. Number 3, 3/4 and 5/6. Okay, you could do 4 times 6 is 24, or you could realize that 12 is going to be the least common denominator. So I've got 9 over 12 is the same as 3/4, and 10 over 12 is the same as 5/6. So 9 over 12 plus 10 over 12 is 19 over 12. And then the last one, 8 over 9. I need to find a common denominator, which in this case is going to be 18. So 8 over 9 is the same thing as 16 over 18. And 1/2 times 9 over 9 gives me 9 over 18. So I have my final answer of 7 over 18. Okay, so those are our adding and subtracting fractions. For the next one, rewriting the data set. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9. My maximum, farthest to the right, is 9. My minimum, farthest to the left, is 1. My range, which is maximum minus minimum, 9 minus 1 is 8. And our median, this is where we cross off small, big, small, big, small, big. 4 is the only one left standing, so our median is 4. I like to do the median at the end, because then I can cross these numbers off and I don't have to look at them again, try to figure out what my max is. Okay, number 2. I go 3, 4, 5, 7, 10. My maximum, farthest number to the right, is 10. Minimum, farthest number left, is 3. 10 minus 3 gives me my range is 7. And my median, small, big, the last number left is 5. And then number 3, I go 1, 2, 2, 4, 8, 12. My biggest number, my max, is 12. My minimum is 1. 12 minus 1 is 11. Now, there were 2 2s. 2 would have been our mode. I do have to write both 2s, otherwise I'm going to be thrown off a little bit. So I go small, big, small, big. I've got 2 numbers left. 2 plus 4 is 6. 6 divided by 2 gives me 3. My median is 3. So today we are going to be multiplying fractions and simplifying our answer. I've already been kind of simplifying things along the way a little bit and saying if you can get this answer, you're ahead of the game. This is where we start to catch up to that. All right. So if I have 3/4 times 1/2, I do top times top over bottom times bottom, right? So 3 times 1 is 3, 4 times 2 is 8. Okay, that one is simplified. If I had 7 over 2 times 2 over 7, that equals 14 over 14. Well, it is not simplified. That one's the easiest one to simplify, because if the top number is the same as the bottom number, that's 1. 14 divided by 14 would equal 1. If I have 6 over 8 times 3 over 7, that's 18 over 56. That one is not simplified. You might be thinking, how does this guy know what is simplified and what's not? And the answer is a lot of practice and a lot of understanding of what factors are. Okay, so if I had 6 over 3 times 4 over 2, that would be 24 over 6. That is also not simplified. So we're actually going to simplify some things. We're going to start with adding and subtracting and trying to simplify and then go from there. So 1/4 plus 2/3. I have to find a common denominator. So I would multiply top and bottom of 1/4 by 3 to get 3/12. And then 2/3 I multiply by 4 over 4 to get 8/12. If I have to add these things together, 3/12 plus 8/12 is 11/12. And then I know this is simplified. The way I know is I look at the factors of the top number and the factors of the bottom number. Not the multiples, but the factors. So what things multiply to equal 11? I have 1 times 11, so I know that those are my outside ones. And then I would work my way in. Does 2 times anything work? No, it's odd. 3 doesn't work. 3 times nothing equals 11. 4 doesn't work. 5. 1 and 11 are my only factors. 12, I have 1 times 12. I have 2 times 6. And I've got 3 times 4. Those are all my factors of 12. Every single number in existence has a common factor of 1, so I'm just going to ignore it. And then I look at the rest of the numbers in the lists. If there are any numbers that match up, I should have put a comma after 4 before 6. If there are any numbers that are in both lists, my fraction is not simplified. Okay? 11 isn't the only number left in this list. That does not show up anywhere here, so I know 11 over 12 is simplified. All right, they're trying to catch up to us. We're already ahead of the game. Now when we're multiplying, we multiply top times top over bottom times bottom. I think to myself, what are my factors of 2? Well, 1 times 2 is 2. Factors of 6, 1 times 6, and 2 times 3. I already said we ignore that one, but there is a 2 in both lists. That tells me 2 over 6 is not simplified. Okay, so what I'm going to do on top and bottom is I'm going to divide the top and the bottom by the number that is in both lists. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Okay, that is going to be my simplified answer. I need to go through this same process again, but 1 is in the top. The only factor of 1 is 1, so I know it's not going to be simplified any further. All right, there is my simplified answer. Again, I forgot a comma right there. Sorry about that. If you were able to find multiple things, so if this was like a 2 here, and they also had a 3, and they also had a 6, I would start with the biggest common factor first. Makes it so you probably have to do less work in the end. So I'm already ahead of the game a little bit with simplifying the answer, but that's okay. So if we do 3/4 times 2/4, that's 6 over 16. My multiples of 6, I don't care about. My factors of 6 are 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. My factors of 16, I have 1 and 16. I've got 2 and 8. And then I've got 4 times 4. I only have to write 4 once in that list. Okay, ignore the 1s. I know that I've got 2s in there. So I'm going to take 6 over 16 and divide the top number by 2 and divide the bottom number by 2. I have to do both numbers just like I did before, because 2 over 2 is 1. If I'm dividing by 1, I'm not changing. I'm finding an equivalent fraction. This tells me my answer is going to be 3 over 8. That is my simplified answer. Okay, now what happens when we have an improper fraction? So that means the top number is bigger than the bottom number. The answer is you break it into 2 things. Okay, 9 over 8. Okay, even though it was a multiplication problem to start with, I hope everybody is okay with having it be 8 over 8 plus 1 over 8. Okay, bottom numbers don't change, top numbers add up to 9. I want this first top number to be what the bottom number is, and this second top number to be whatever was left. Okay, the reason I want that is because 8 over 8 is 1. And then instead of writing 1 plus 1 over 8, we write it as a mixed numeral, which is 1 and 1 over 8. We need to be a little bit careful when we're writing this. This is why I'm not a huge fan of mixed numbers, because if you write something like that, I don't know if you mean 1 and 1 over 8 or 11 over 8. So I don't know if those things are equal. So try to be very, very careful. If you remember in elementary school, you had lined paper like this where you had to actually practice writing your letters and your numbers. This first part goes all the way from the top to the bottom, and the fraction, the numerator goes up here, the fraction bar goes right on the dotted line, and the numerator or the denominator goes down on the bottom half. So make sure you're spreading things out carefully. All right. Now, the way the book has a couple of these things, I think is a little bit more complicated. So we're just going to follow the directions I just gave because I think it's a little bit easier. But we're going to do a couple practice. So write the answer in simplest form. Top times top. 4 times 3 is 12. Bottom times bottom. 5 times 2 is 10. Okay. There are two ways that I can do this problem. First one, I can do 12 over 10 is the same thing as 10 over 10 plus 2 over 10. All right, so that would be 1 and 2/10. I don't like this method first because 2/10 is not simplified. And then people like to get to this mixed number and then stop. All right, what I could do still would be divide by 2. Because 2 goes into 2 and 2 goes into 10. So then my answer would be 1 and 1 over 5. The way that I think is easier is back when we had 12 over 10 is still divide by 2 right there. That gives us 6 over 5. 6 over 5 is the same thing as 5 over 5 plus 1 over 5. It still gives us that 1 and 1/5 answer. But I feel like people make less mistakes doing it this way because here they get to a number they think is simplified and don't double check, and then they stop. All right, so I said I did things a little bit differently. That's what this part is right here. They wanted to multiply some weird stuff, and I didn't like it. I found it to be more confusing than helpful. So I just want you to do is multiply these numbers and then simplify. Write out the multiples, or excuse me, not the multiples. I always say multiples when I'm trying to focus on not having you guys use the multiples, which is not a good problem to have. Students like to use the multiples, but we want to use our factors. Factors and multiples are not the same thing. So I'm going to do the first problem with you, and then if you want to pause the video and do the first problem and see if you've got it, that's awesome. But you'll pause the video and do the rest of them, and then come back and see how you did. So for this first problem, multiply straight across. That gives you 6 over 15. 6, we've done a few times, so I know my factors are 1, 2, 3, and 6. 15, my factors are 1 times 15 and 3 times 5. So I've got a common factor of 3. So 6/15. I'm going to divide the top number by 3 and divide the bottom number by 3. Gives me 2/5. That is my final answer for number 1. For number 2, 4 times 1 is 4. 6 times 2 is 12. Factors of 4 are 1, 2, and 4. Factors of 12 are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. So here I've got 2 as a factor, and I've got 4 as a factor. All right, I'm going to do this problem 2 different ways for you, okay? Because you can do these problems different ways. There's not a guaranteed only one way to do it. Some people like to just go, oh, I look at that first number that was in both lists, so 2. That would give you 2 over 6. But 2 and 6 also have a common factor of 2, so I'd have to divide by 2 and 6, or divide by 2 for the 2 and the 6 again to get my final answer is 1 over 3. Or if at the beginning I would have picked the bigger factor that was in both lists, I would jump right away to that 1/3. In this case, it does not always jump you to the answer, but usually it's going to make your life easier. All right. Number 3, top times top. 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 8 on the bottom is going to be 32. 6 has our same factors, 1, 2, 3, and 6. 32, I've got 1 times 32. I've got 2 times 16. 3 doesn't work, but I've got 4 times 8. And then 5 doesn't work, 6 doesn't work, 7 doesn't work. So I've got those options. I've got a whole bunch, but I only needed to get to 2. So I'm going to divide top number and bottom number by 2 to get 3 over 16. Okay? Those don't have any common factors, so that I am officially simplified. All right, so now we're going to talk about mean absolute deviation. Excuse me, I got the hiccups. And we're going to use it to describe extremes or outliers. So, mean absolute deviation sounds really fancy, but ultimately it requires you to find the mean, add or subtract, and then find the mean again. So we're going to use that to help us describe how most data values differ or deviate from the mean and identify extremes or outliers. So find the mean first and find the mean absolute deviation of the stuff below. So they're French fries from school cafeteria. They measured them for some weird reason. I don't really know. Some of them are short, some of them are long. So get the idea of the cafeteria French fry length. They took 10 out of a basket of 40 and then measured them in inches. So they've got those measurements right there. So first, I want to find the average length of the French fries. So that's our mean. So I have to add them all up. So 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 5 is going to be 9, plus 4, 13, plus 4, 17, plus 8 is going to be 25, plus 3, 28, 31, 35, 40. So they added up to 40, and there were 10 of them, they said. I'll double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 40 divided by 10, the average length is going to be 4 inches. The minimum length, the smallest, was 1 inch, and the biggest one that they grabbed was 8 inches. All right. Now, on the next page, what is the mean absolute deviation? So what that means is I need to figure out how far away each of these numbers is from the mean. So to get from 1 to 4, I had to add 3. I had to add 1. I had to subtract 1. I'm not going to care about adding or subtracting. It's just how far away from the mean. 0, because it's right there. 4, 1, 1, 0, 1. So those are my new numbers. So to find my mean absolute deviation, okay, I know it's on the next page, but I want to be able to see these numbers still. I have to add up 3, 1, 1. Well, that's 5. Plus 0, plus 0. I'm going to ignore those because they don't do anything. Plus 4 gives me a 9, 10, 11, 0, and then one more. Okay, so I've got 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I added them up to get 12, but I have to divide by 10 because there were still 10 numbers. Even though the zeros didn't add anything, they're still there. If I do 12 divided by 10, I'm going to get 1. Put a decimal here, bring this down. 10 goes into 20 2 times, but I get the mean absolute deviation of 1.2. Now, what that means if I picked one of these random fries at random, the mean absolute deviation tells me it should be about 1.2 inches or less away from 4 inches long. So it tells me most of the fries I picked were 4 inches, 3 inches, or 5 inches. So make a statement about how the typical fry differs from the mean. The typical fry is about 1 inch or less away from the mean. So most of the French fries are 3, 4, or 5 inches. Okay. Make a statement about the minimum and maximum lengths in relation to the mean absolute deviation. So I'm looking at 3, 4, and 5 inch fries predominantly. Okay, 1.2 inches away could have been 2.8, could have been 5.2, but I didn't have any of those odd measurements in there. So my minimum, which was 1, and my maximum, which was 8, are not within that range. Okay, the deviation of those was 3 and 4. It was 3 inches or 4 inches away from the mean. My mean absolute deviation said it should be 1.2. Okay, that tells me my minimum and maximum are too far away, so they're called outliers. So make a statement about the minimum and maximum lengths in relation to the mean absolute deviation. The minimum and maximum lengths had deviations of excuse me, had deviations of 3 and 4 inches from the mean. These are larger. These deviations are larger than the mean deviation and mean absolute deviation. So these fries are outliers. Now that is a lot of fancy math vocabulary. So what this is saying is if you randomly picked a fry, you probably are not going to pick that 1 inch fry or that 8 inch fry. They are very, very rare. Outliers means that it doesn't really fit in with the rest of the data. So the rest of the numbers were all about 3, 4, 5 inches. So your fries are probably 3, 4, 5 inches. Okay, that's what the mean absolute deviation tells us. It gives us that range from the median, or from the mean, I should say. The 1 inch fry and the 8 inch fry are way different than what you'd expect. Okay, it's like if you got something and you ordered curly fries and you got a 1 potato chip. Okay, it's still made out of potato, but it's not what you're expecting. It's an outlier. All right, and that was the last one. I thought I had more questions, but apparently I don't. So your homework, again, my folders are a little bit different than yours, so you're under Unit 1. That was Lesson 4, so you're going to go to that Lesson 4 and do that homework. I clicked on the Lesson 4 thing by accident. Click on Homework, and then scroll down to Lesson 4 and work through those. I hope everybody has a great day.